Brier Hill water tower right there. In that white steel building, corrugated white, painted white corrugated steel building, that's the functional steel mill called Vallourec Steel, V&M. And that's the product produced here at this steel mill on the west side of Youngstown. Okay, I'm closer to the water tower where it says Brier Hill, and off in the distance that way is a steel mill. And I'm going to keep walking in that direction. Okay, I'm closer to the steel mill, and you can see how long these cars stretch. These gondola cars stretch, all filled with that seamless pipe made in a steel mill right behind me. As I continue to pan, this is the newer addition to the steel mill. Okay, there's the back side of that water tower. There's the steel mill. There's the logs or the blanks that they're going to make the pipes out of. And I'm just going to keep walking down the side of the steel mill. This is the next section that I'm going to walk along. A better word for those what look to be logs would actually be billets. So there's the billets of steel, and they're going to send them inside one of these buildings to make seamless pipe. You could tell this is newer, no doubt about it. Okay, here's the last section of the newer addition, and I'm just going to keep walking alongside of it just to give you a point of reference. There's the back side of the water tower, and I've walked this far. And I'm going to keep walking to right about there. You can't even see those gondola cars because that light gray, those light gray cars are in the way. Okay, I've reached the edge of the newer addition to this steel mill, and I'm going to keep walking east towards downtown Youngstown, and I'll show you the older section of Vallourec Steel. The furnace looked like an electric arc furnace. It was tilted so you could see the molten steel, but it tilted back down. Straight ahead, if you could see that yellow construction equipment, those rusted, they look like bells. Those are actually ladles for the steel. And behind that, if you see beyond it, like that dark brown building, that's the older section of the steel mill. There's one of the big ladles that has steel in it when they're making the steel molten. And I think they just did some work with molten steel over that way. But I can't say for sure. I see some smoke rising up. But that's one of the ladles. Okay, here's an older section of the steel mill. And I'm getting closer to the older part of Vallourec Steel. It used to be called North Star Steel. And as I keep walking this way, you will see where I'm in an area that has been here a while. The older section of this steel mill. Okay, here's the older part of the steel mill. You can see this old wall. It's been a while since I was back here. Okay, here's another part of that wall. You can see where the concrete is wearing away. And on the other side of the newer concrete wall is still part of the steel mill. Back in the day, this was sheet and tube Brier Hill Works. There's part of that old concrete wall that has been weathered. There's a lot of snow in the winter in this area. AM Tech Oil, well named Brier Hill Slag Unit number 2. Okay, here's the older section of the steel mill. You could see just by looking at that building in the background. And once again, there's an older section of a wall over there. Just like when I was at the Struthers sheet and tube steel mill, this might be part of the old building back in the early 1900s where the actual first steel mill was. So that might be part of the wall that's left over from the old steel mill. You could see the cracks in this old concrete wall. So this has definitely been here a while. Okay, here's the older section of Vallourec Steel. And I'm going to bring this video to an end shortly. Let me zoom in on that. Okay, here's the end of the older part of the steel mill. There's the end of it. I've driven across that bridge hundreds of times when I lived in Youngstown. 40 years I lived in Youngstown. And here's the very old, possibly the original steel mill that used to be here. All right, I hope you're enjoying a tour of the Rust Belt town of Youngstown, Ohio. Viking 1 over and out. Have a good day.